my name is Glenn Dyer, and this year has sucked for movies. And other things. But this show's about movies, so I'm gonna complain about that. Where was the Mad Max Fury Roads of the year? Where was the Spotlight? Where was the... anything? The year has been so bland. The summer blockbusters were so terrible. Christ, it's been so hard to get excited about any movie this year. What is going on, Hollywood? But nonetheless, even in the worst of years, there's always a decent-sized list of films that deserve some recognition. As always, please take note of the qualifications. The movie has to be something that I've reviewed this year. And, it's a pretty long list, so chances are your favorite movie will be in that. Pretty likely. And that also means that if the movie was technically released in a film festival in October of 2015, and I'm reviewing it now, screw you! It came into theaters in 2016, I watched it in 2016, it's a movie of 2016. And finally, what should be most obvious, this is my list, not yours. And all of my picks are completely subjective. In fact, it is somewhat ridiculous to be comparing movies like this, but still, I like the top 10 format, so let's dive right into it. Number 10. Barbershop, The Next Cut. Yeah, this was a surprise, I have to say. I did not expect a sequel, yet alone the fourth in a series, to impress me this much. The movie starring Ice Cube and Nicki Minaj to honestly somehow work. Not only work, but work really, really well. And in ways I have trouble even defining. Most of the movie takes place in a barbershop, and most of the plot, if you can call it that, consists of people sitting around talking to each other. I have no idea if the other movies in the series are like this. I have no idea if they're good. I'm told Barbershop is really critically acclaimed. That's nice. The original one. I can't even describe how it works, but honestly, you're just kind of enticed by it. To me, I would honestly just compare it to sitting around people watching and just listening in on a conversation and saying, just passively nodding your head or whatever, just listening, and you hear some interesting stuff. It's baffling. It should not work. Especially it should not work for the fourth fucking time. Technically fifth, because there was a spin-off. It should not work, but somehow it does, and I gotta give props to that. Number 9. Allegiant. Yeah, this would probably be one of the bigger surprises on this list, since this is not a film that was critically acclaimed. Oh boy. But, you know what? This is my list, as I said. And it doesn't matter what all the other people in the world say. I love this movie. I thought it was great. In terms of the Divergent series, it's probably my favorite. And I have watched the first two, and the first one is pretty good, and the second one is slightly disappointing until the end, when it becomes this movie. I don't want to spoil the plot or anything, but essentially, what we thought was the story has been completely flipped on its head, and somehow that makes complete sense given the premise of the other movies. And it really works. And what's the most surprising is that this, as far as I remember, is half of a book. And somehow, it still gets a great 3-act structure in there. And it doesn't feel like half a movie, like Deathly Hallows or, God forbid, Twilight does. So yeah, I'm nominating a teen action adventure romance based on a novel thing in my top 10 list. What? Number 8. 10 Cloverfield Lane. Alright, This movie is filled with twists and turns. This movie was mysterious. This movie had great moments with John Goodman and the other people. It had a nice twist. And the ending fucked it all up. What the fuck was that ending? I still don't want to spoil it just because the whole freaking movie is so great, and I really don't want to put it down, but for Christ's sake, you could have ended it on a much better note than what they did. And that was disappointing. If it weren't for that, this would be many steps above this. Like, when I originally wrote the list, it wasn't even on the top 10. I was that disappointed with the ending. It brought it down that far. But after reflection, most of the movie is awesome. Yeah, definitely recommend adding this one to your list, but maybe turn it off once it feels like it's already over, so probably 5 minutes to the end. And it'll seem fine. Number 7. The Hateful Eight. So this is the, as he would proclaim it himself, the 8th film in the Quentin Tarantino film universe, or something. I don't know about that, but mostly the reason it's on here is that I thought it was a great suspense. That's it. It had a lot of tension to it. It built up the mystery and the tension a lot. And it had some great performances in there too. It was very mesmerizing to watch, and honestly, even though it's really long, I think it's over 2 hours, it just flies by. You're having so much fun watching it. If I did have any kind of bitty critique about it, it's that I know it's a Quentin Tarantino staple, but the blood and gore stuff becomes a little ridiculous towards the end. Yeah, I know, it's expected of him, and it was great gore. It looked awesome, but in this type of movie, I'm not sure it works that well. But other than that, great moments, extremely quotable. Definitely check it out. Number 6. Deadpool. Yeah, superhero movie too. Superhero movie on the list, but only because it's a different kind of superhero. Yeah, Deadpool definitely brought the character to life. The one that I've briefly read in the comics and have no right calling myself an expert on, but still, they brought up the essence of his comedy, of his fourth wall breaking, to the big screen with a clearly limited budget and made it work. What I especially have to give props to is the filmmakers who refused to back down and let this movie have an R rating. It was honestly the only way to go. If you brought your kids to see this, shame on you. Because this is a very violent movie, as it should be. It's Deadpool. The comedy is great, the action is great, characters are great. The story is, stock. It's just your basic superhero origin story. This guy who's down on his luck and gets picked up for a secret program, and then the program does something horrible to him, and now he wants revenge on it, and he gets it. If I have to critique anything, it would be that. But honestly, this is one of those cases where the characters and the comedy go beyond the plot. And you can really, really enjoy it in spite of that stuff. I just would have preferred that, since it is Deadpool, that they maybe go for a less linear way of telling his backstory. It would have made for an even more unique experience, and possibly a better movie. But as it is, it's amazing, and I can't wait to see more. Number 5. Manchester by the Sea. Well, this is a late entry, but damn it if it didn't blow me away. Casey Affleck stars as this miserable, downtrodden, self-criminalized person living in exile for horrible things that happened in his past that technically weren't his fault, but still he feels responsible for, which isn't not understandable. Throughout the movie, the dread just builds as you see more and more of his life and more of why people don't like him, why he has no friends, why people seem to shudder at the idea of him and say, like, are those stories really true? As that is revealed, you really start to feel for the person. And it's so brilliantly written that it's honestly hard to tell what the fuck to do. Like, and a lot of these kinds of movies, honestly, the answer seems so simple, but the characters can't do it for some reason. But in this one, there is no easy answers with what happened. I'm not gonna spoil what happened, but Jesus Christ, it is horrifying. And yet, surprisingly, despite all that, the movie also has a lot of funny, charming moments. Just strewn in. Not haphazardly, not in a way that's jarring or inconsistent. It just feels like life. Even when somebody is super depressed, sometimes there's a funny moment. It just happens. I give great props to the filmmakers for making this story so interesting and so lifelike and so heartfelt. It definitely deserves a spot on any top 10 list. But after a little bit of thought, I kind of start to agree with my friends. It did start to drag a little. Not much, not much. I still don't think it ruined the film in any kind of way, but it was just a little, like, I don't know, somebody was lightly tapping the brakes at some point. But not much, not much. I assure you, the movie is still fucking awesome. It'll change your life. It probably won't change your life. No movie can do that. Oh, maybe. It could. I don't know you. Damn it, watch it. Okay. I'm not gonna even suggest you skip anything. Maybe just bear in mind. But it's still awesome, even if it is a touch slow. At the end, only the end, watch the damn movie, man. I don't need to say any more. Number 4. Moana. What? Okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. It's a family adventure action film, and it is fucking awesome. This is the first. Yeah, I think it's the first Disney musical since Frozen. Not nearly as popular as Frozen, and thank God for that. Can you imagine if people were just singing the Moana songs over and over as they went down the street, seeing constant advertisements for it that never fucking end, having a Moana park built over an Epcot Center, like literally just replace Spaceship Earth with some sort of Moana ride? Like, Jesus Christ, I'd start to hate it. But no, instead it's got a more humble response, and that's preferable. And that has nothing to do with the movie. The movie itself, I think, is better than Frozen. Just personally. I think that the music is more in tune with the style and the themes than it was with Frozen. The animation was great, that's pretty much a given, but it was. It had good comedy without it feeling forced, like adding some sort of weird sidekick character halfway through. No, that one was added at the very beginning of the movie, and he doesn't do much to interfere with the plot or anything. Then again, neither does Olaf, but still, what the fuck was he doing there again? It is definitely a great film for the whole family. Everyone should see it, but it is not the highest rated animated feature on this list. Number 3. Green Room, and neither is this. I'm starting to notice a bit of a pattern here with The Hateful Eight and Barbershop the Next Cut of really awesome movies that for the most part take place in one fucking room. Like, is that just the theme now? Did everyone watch Room from last year and decide, I want to make a movie like that, set entirely in one room? Although even then, halfway through that movie, they go to a different place, but still. And I have to say that this movie is the best of those. It basically involves this punk rock band who are just traveling around and are invited to perform at this white nationalist club. Well, they had reasons. They needed the money. Don't look at them like that. Don't look at me like that, I just like the movie. The movie's great. And when they're there, they witness something horrible, and because of that, the white nationalists can't let them leave. But it goes a little deeper than that. For instance, when Sir Patrick Stewart's character shows up, I honestly got the feeling that maybe he was gonna try and let them go. I don't know if this was actually his plan or not, but it did seem like he was figuring out some way to both cover up the incident and get them out of there, so he doesn't have to deal with the mess or anything. But, of course, as things progress, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Until eventually people's arms are getting blown off and stuff like that. It is definitely really tense, and probably my favorite part about it, none of the characters are idiots. Every single action they do makes sense, and it's like what a normal person would do. When they see something horrible, one of them immediately goes to call 911. Doesn't just stand there and say, hey, you, stop that or I'll call 911. No, like, just grabs his phone like any person would and just calls them, says, hello! And then gets his phone snatched out of his hand. Which is also realistic. Nobody would just sit around watching that if you were the criminal. And it also has a really good pace. Just building up the tension, but not to the point of ridiculousness. And definitely a favorite of this would be a lot of the practical effects they used in the gore. You know me, I'm a practical effects guy, and I am definitely a gore guy, so when I see somebody's hand getting blown off in, like, super awesome practical effects glory, oh man, that is awesome. So yeah, definitely, if you're looking for a great thriller, not technically a horror film, but if you're looking for a great thriller, this is that. Number 2. Don't Breathe. Now, if you're looking for an actual horror, this film, I could admit, being somewhat polarizing on the plot aspect, because our main characters, our protagonists, this is the literary term for them, are essentially out to rob, like steal all the money from a blind veteran. That's that, it's a literary term, and that also makes him the antagonist. Because in the literary term, the protagonist is the person the story is told from, I believe. And the antagonist is the person who gets in the way of the protagonist. So even if the protagonist happens to be evil, he's still a protagonist. But I have to come to the defense of the movie. Our characters are understandable, at least. We have the one that's in it only for the girl. We have the girl herself who's in it to get out of a terrible situation with her family, to get one last heist and get out of there. And we have the complete and utter monster. But he's there simply so he can be killed off for extra tension. So, it works! It works, I swear to God it works. And even with the veteran, if I'm also defending that for a lot of the movie, until a few things are revealed, you're on his side, okay? There is nothing painting this guy in a bad light until we see the thing that paints him in a bad light. So I don't think this movie is against veterans or blind people or anything. It's just more a really outrageous premise, kind of like an exploitation film, but I don't really want to call it that, even though it kind of is. But I didn't nominate an exploitation film to number 2 on this list, but still, I can't deny it has great cinematography, and it's so mesmerizing, and it looks beautiful, but it's horrible. But no, that it's only the premise that's horrible. The real movie is, oh my God, they're robbing a blind man. As you can see, it's even polarizing to me. But I still think it deserves number 2 on this list, just because any movie that can generate a discussion like that, and still have someone come away thinking, this was fucking awesome, that's pretty cool. And now, before the number one pick, let me just honorably mention a few honorable mentions. Incarnate! The best Blumhouse movie ever made, and currently sitting at number 59 on my list. Sounds about right. Arrival. Possibly the best sci-fi film I've seen in years. The only reason it's not on the top 10 list is because this kind of memento editing it gets later on becomes really confusing and kind of stupid. Not gonna lie. Keanu, an incredibly original comedy. The entire plot is propelled forward just by every character's weird instinctual need to just have this one kitten called Keanu. I have never seen anything like it. So, yeah, it's good. The BFG. I'm really sad this couldn't make the top 10 list. It was so close, but there are just a few more good movies than it, and it was beautiful, it was heartwarming, it was magical, and it's probably one of the best remakes I've ever seen. But nobody else saw it, so try and fix that if you could. And now, the number one best movie of 2016 is Creature! Well, you know it actually is, but the technical one, it's gotta be Kubo and the Two Strings. Easily, in my opinion, the best that Laika Studios has ever produced. It has a very original story, great characters, great moments to it, and amazing pacing. I can't stress that enough. The pacing in the film is great. There wasn't a single moment in the film where I wasn't elated, or mesmerized, or was completely taken aback by everything. I would like to say that it was a hard choice to put this here considering some of the other movies on the list, but honestly, it wasn't. To me, personally, this is easily number one of the year. Even the ending, which a lot of people have been complaining about from what I can hear, I can defend as being one of the best endings I've ever seen to any kind of film like this. Far more realistic, if you'd believe it, than most family films will ever dare to go for. And it honestly portrays the message a lot better than some other films. Like, not wanting to give you an idea of what the ending is, but talking about peace and love and forgiveness and then stabbing Ursula through the heart with a boat. You know, it does work for simplicity, but it's not... it doesn't quite mesh with the theme, is what I'm saying. So yeah, family movie in the top 10. Number one, actually, of the year. 2017! It'll probably be the same.
Way you do it. You play the guitar on the